such as that. Evie Aspinall is director of the British Foreign Policy Group think tank. There's going to be a lot of pressure now on Sir Keir to commit to that 2.5%. Which way do you think he'll go? Good morning to you.
Good morning. I think he will commit to 2.5%, but I think it might take a little while. Labour has said that they'll do a sort of integrated review of sorts, reviewing the UK's national security within the first year in government. I imagine that might be a kind of something they focus on within that review, and it might therefore take a year. The exception to this might be if Donald Trump wins in the United States and we see growing pressure for the UK and our European allies to increase defence spending internationally. That might push Starmer to do it slightly more quickly.
Sir Keir will go to Washington or set off later today, where obviously he'll meet with President Biden and others. We're hearing that Britain wants to be seen as Ukraine's staunchest ally. What does he need to do there when he meets with the other world leaders?
I think his primary thing he needs to do is get support within NATO. We're seeing NATO splintering on a range of issues, China, Ukraine, the Middle East, but Ukraine being the biggest. We see nations like Hungary and Turkey going off and supporting Russia in many ways and strengthening their relations with Russia. So the primary thing he needs to do is get collective buy-in across NATO for Ukraine. And he also needs to secure some very tangible commitments. We've seen from the events of the last 24 hours how desperately Ukraine needs better air defence systems. They've been calling for months. And so it's going to be really down to Starmer and some of his allies in NATO to push for that.
We saw recently it took many months in the US for them to actually match their commitment with weaponry. Is it likely to be that length of delay again?
In the United States, Italy, or the UK?
In the US, sorry, in the US.
In the US. Yes, certainly. I think we'll still see continued delays in the United States, with the main challenge there being that there's not public support for, or interest in Ukraine. We might see a bit of an uptick after recent events and as kind of the civilian casualties seem to keep rising in Ukraine. But actually trying to get it past, particularly Republicans in the United States, is proving particularly challenging. And as we head into an election period, the focus in the United States will be very domestic and there'll be little support for spending more internationally.
Evie Aspinall, thank you. You're director of the British Foreign Policy Group think tank. Thank you for holding a little bit later. I hope I've not inconvenienced you this morning. Let's take you through the